The Co video? Yeah, I guess we'll watch the CohhCarnage video. Yeah, we'll look at this one. We'll look at this one tomorrow. It's a sad outlook on life
Yes.
because you're trying to change
Yes.
the way the world.
This is the perfect follow-up to whatever that was, because this guy's takes on Baldur's Gate 3 are going to be honest, thorough, and complete. He played through the game. I've played through the game. I know exactly how he's going to feel about this. And it's going to be positive because it's a fantastic game. Play it now. I'm such a like evangelical Baldur's Gate 3 fan.
Looks at things. Like anytime that you try to change the world, you're going to be unhappy. Like especially in terms of how people feel.
Sure.
Those self-righteous game reviewers need an excuse to write longer, meaningless paragraphs into reviews to feel like they have English degrees of no purpose. No gamers actually felt that way. Yeah, exactly. Nobody really thinks this.
Fair.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody gives a fuck. Great outlook for life. It is a great outlook. I would much rather be a person that focused on myself than focused on trying to change people's opinions on the fucking internet.
Sure.
It's the biggest waste of time of your life. Like, if you ever gotten in an argument with somebody on the internet, and then, like, a week later you think back on how stupid you are for even engaging in it?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is I don't plan to engage anybody about this conversation. I'm just speaking into the void. Agree or disagree, by all means.
Even considering, like, especially, like, a fucking new Don Hung trailer released 2 minutes ago. Yeah, I might look at that. I don't even remember the argument. Yeah, it's just it's a waste of time.
Hey everybody, Co here with another thoughts video, the second one on Baldur's Gate 3.
Okay.
Now, this is going to be a little bit shorter than normal because, frankly, pretty much everything I said in the first thoughts video rings true and goes right into this one. I have now completed Baldur's Gate 3 in, I believe, just under 150 hours.
Wow.
Close to 2,500.
That's about as much time as it took me to beat the first Elden Ring.
Quick saves. And I have to say, now that I'm done,
Not the first Elden Ring, my first playthrough of Elden
Baldur's Gate 3 is an incredibly special, unique, and magnificent game.
Bro,
Yes.
like, this is what you tell people right before you tell them they're going to lose or they're going to get kicked off the show.
There have been no other games that I have played that have attempted really to do what this game does. It is really a pinnacle of what a CRPG can be. And frankly, I thoroughly enjoyed every single second I spent in this game.
Yes.
This is a game that when it is, you know what?
Like, I would say the last time that I felt that way about a game was Elden Ring.
And that's what I haven't played Elden Ring, but a lot of people feel that way about Elden Ring. That's what I mean is, yes, this is turn-based combat, but there's no other game in this genre like Baldur's Gate 3. It sets a new standard. It hugely surpasses it. It takes a giant leap forward. It's amazing.
Like, minus, like, maybe, like, 40 minutes on that bird boss. But besides that, I enjoyed every second of it.
When it's
Minus those
completed,
40 minutes, though.
will possibly be a game that is not going to be surpassed for years and years and years to come.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
like
is
20
it
years.
is a tribute and testament to how incredible games can be as a whole. And
Right.
it is trying to do things and in some ways achieving what I would argue most other games, it's not even on their radar. This game is
There are studios that say this is too much, let's not do this, like this doesn't help our bottom line, so don't over engineer. This game over engineers without expectations of return. It just wants to have, Larian just wants to have a great reputation, and they've achieved it. And all these memes coming out about other game studios being pissed off about how good this game is, like, it does kind of ring true in the sense that it's like, hey, other game studios do better.
One of the most immersive experiences I've ever had.
Yeah.
It has some of the most freeform gameplay I've ever seen.
You get so attached to the characters, not because of sex, but just because of how well the backstories and everything are written and the interactions you have throughout the story. And at the end, I cried. I'm a more emotional being, so that was part of it. But for those who are more emotional, you do grow a bit of an attachment to some of the characters. There are characters you like, there are characters you kind of despise in some cases, and you get emotional about it. It's cool.
It has some of the most passion I've ever seen in a project.
Yeah.
It has some of the most thoroughness I've seen in a project, and we'll return to this in a minute.
Big time.
And frankly, again, just from beginning to end, I had a smile on my face.
Thoroughness in the sense that, like, I haven't followed D&D lore very much, but my impression from other D&D fans has been this game really touches on some of the history. Like, even when you pick up a book and it talks about some of the lore that exists in the D&D universe, it nails it. They did their research.
I really enjoyed it, and I thought it was fantastic. Now, as this is a video specifically about the final thoughts, particularly me finishing the game, I want to say that everything I've said up to this point, I fundamentally believe in, and I 100% feel is true. However, I think it's important to mention, if Act 1 is 100, Act 2 is between 90 and 95.
Yeah.
And Act 3 is between 70 and 80.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard
it does drop off. That's fair. That's fair. But if you spend your time, like, you really get your value's worth out of that first act. And then you're invested, and like Act 2 and Act 3 are very fun. But they're not Act 1.
this criticism a lot, this feedback a lot, that like the game kind of it's like the Dark Souls 1 situation, right? Where like at the Dark Souls 1, like the first half of the game is just the greatest experience of all time, and then like the second half, like Lost Izalith, you know, you just kind of get through it.
This game is not finished.
But that part kind of excites me, because the game just came out. It's been less than a month. So like, there's so much room to grow. And the studio has officially responded in saying that it would be like a serious undertaking, but a dungeon master mode, a game master mode is possible. It's just, it would take a lot of work. And their focus is probably going to be ironing out all the bugs that are being discovered over time. I've highlighted a few of them in some of the clips I have on Twitch. And man, like, they probably want to try and make multiplayer really fun, maybe come up with some more content. Apparently there was some content that was extracted because it just wasn't finished. So like, there's going to be some expansions, I bet. And one of those expansions, I think, even if it was paid content, I think a lot of people would pay for a Dungeon Master Mode expansion. I could see that. Huge. So much replay value already, and then adding that, man. Some of those D&D parties that are really hard to put together suddenly have like a huge incentive because you can like create your own worlds. That's one of the big appeals to Divinity Original Sin 2. But being able to play in the D&D 5e context would change the game for them.
And if you want the full experience of this game, I would probably wait a couple patches.
Yeah.
And let me tell you why that is.
It's the same thing I've said about reviewing games with early access. Even after a game comes full release, the development cycle nowadays, games are not finished when they release. Games are finished after the first few patches, arguably in my head, when they first go on sale. That's when you know, okay, this game's probably ready to be played. But I didn't want
We
to
have
wait.
spoken so much about how this game sets the bar, how it does things that no other game has even tried to do, how the first act is just a beginning to end phenomenal experience. But here's something we're not really talking a lot about, and I feel that this is important to mention. This game not only sets the bar externally, but it sets the bar internally. And what do I mean by that? I mean that Act 3 does not meet the bar of Act 1.
Yeah, sure. I think that's fair. I mean, like, every game is probably not perfect. I mean, shit. People said that about like Elden Ring and like the caves, that the caves were really repetitive and the bosses were really repetitive.
And someone's making a good point. Act 1 had 3 years of early access. So many people playing it, so much opportunity for feedback and things getting ironed out. We didn't see Act 2 and Act 3 until now. So there was a lot of room for improvement and opportunity for improvement.
They're right. It's true. Yeah.
It feels
Nothing's
like
perfect.
two different studios made those acts. Act 1,
It could have been different teams.
I at no point felt any hesitation in doing every single thing I wanted to do. Every time I did something, my whole party reacted to it. It was rock solid. It felt amazing, and I
Right.
just was 100% immersed.
Yeah.
Act 3, I felt like I was constantly looking over my back to make sure that something wasn't working improperly. I frequently was surprised that things were not reacting to things that I did.
Right.
Things would not react as I expected them to.
I can see that to be like a good point, because like at the beginning of the game, maybe there's like more like secondary interactions from characters, and then throughout the game it doesn't happen as much because there isn't as much development time put into that. Is that pretty much where he's coming from?
Yeah, it does fall off.
My party and
That's
NPCs would
correct.
talk about things that didn't exist, or I hadn't done yet, or I did a different way.
Right.
And it got to the point
It does reach a point, you know, when it talks about tying off loose ends, there are some interactions with your companions where if you don't interact with them during kind of the context of when it happens, those voice lines still kind of like linger, where you can still ask those questions about those things when they've transpired a different way. One of them was definitely a bug in which, spoiler alert for those who don't want spoilers, but Shadowheart and Lae'zel have a falling out and question each other's loyalty, and I had it roll a certain way where Lae'zel killed Shadowheart, and Lae'zel talks about like, oh, I killed her, but I had a bug where Shadowheart didn't die. She's still a part of my playthrough now. And then they started interacting like it hadn't happened, but I had interactions with the character where it was like, oh, Shadowheart made her choice. She didn't tell us why. You know, she was hiding the artifact, so we had to do away with her. And then Shadowheart also said, like, oh, like, Lae'zel was being hostile. Like, we had to deal with it. Thanks for backing me up on that. Like, but there's so much good about the game that you can overlook those things, knowing that there's time and opportunity for those things to be fixed. And in a couple patches, they'll fix those things. Right now, the focus is stability, making sure the game runs well. Then they start ironing out the bugs. Then they focus on maybe some new content. Maybe that also includes a Dungeon Master mode. Who knows what the future holds. But this game sets a new standard externally for all studios to step it up and come out with more feature-complete products. It's so good.
where that phenomenal facade that Act 1 and Act 2 built
Act 2 was really good
started
too.
to crumble a bit. And I started to, instead of it being this kind of immersive CRPG paradise, there were times in Act 3 when I was like, yeah, this is just a game. Not all of Act 3, mind you.
Okay.
Like I said, 70 to 80% of it feels great.
More of the side quest stuff. The main act, the main quest line, the main story, still good. Still really good. But any of the like secondary stuff that you do, It doesn't feel like it was totally ready. So
Same quality. I loved the area of Baldur's Gate. I loved some of the locations. Many of my favorite aspects of this game are in Act 3.
Okay.
mine
But
too.
the whole picture,
There's a part of me that like wants to get into Baldur's Gate as quickly as possible. Like I've just found my way into Rivington and I want to like almost blow through everything as quick as I can, but I'll take my time. This is my second playthrough. I've already seen it, but I really enjoyed that area.
needs more time to cook. And one thing I want to make sure that I mention here is that if there's any company that I feel will develop this to what I feel like it deserves to be,
Larian.
it is Larian Studios. When I first played Divinity,
Yeah, I think that's probably true. I mean, it's not like they probably haven't heard this and they were probably like, okay, this is good enough. We're going to get it out there. And, you know, by the time people play through it, you know, we'll have the rest of it ready. I think that's usually what happens.
Original Sin 2, my final
I would
act
expect
was
them to
so
fix it.
buggy that I had key characters in the final fight that I had killed earlier in the game.
Ooh.
It was a total mess.
He's
Yeah.
a necromancer.
That's kind of what happened as I described with Shadowheart and Lae'zel. That stuff happens. I imagine with my playthrough, like there's quite a few characters who are either like not part of my party anymore or who have died, and I might see them. I'm very interested to see if that happens.
Within a year's time, when I played it again another time, the entire game, pretty much,
Yeah.
was rock solid.
Right.
And I have absolutely no doubt that Larian Studios will do that exact same thing with Baldur's Gate 3.
Right.
So, in this final thoughts video, I want to stress that Baldur's Gate 3 is one of, if not the best game I've ever played. It is,
Wow.
especially the first 2 acts,
Wow.
one of the most
Holy
incredible
shit.
gaming experiences.
I've been saying this from the start. This game makes me feel the way KOTOR has made me feel. Knights of the Old Republic, Star Wars, since 2003. I haven't played a game like this since 2003. I play KOTOR almost every year to celebrate like how good that game is. And it never stops being fun. This is like that new KOTOR for me. It puts me in a universe that's so fun to enjoy, and I can overlook some of the buggy things that happen and chuckle, realizing, you know, some development needs to happen. But it's so rock solid for so many other reasons that I can't fault it.
Experiences I've ever experienced. And I play a lot of games.
Yeah.
This
Yeah,
game
I would
bleeds
I would
passion.
trust his opinion
This
a
game's
lot.
amazing. This game is awesome. And if you are even slightly a fan of this type of game, even if you aren't,
Even if
I
you
think
aren't,
you may absolutely love this game.
it's not like other turn-based role-playing games. This is unlike anything you've played.
If you are in a position where you can give it some more time to cook, I would probably recommend you do that.
Maybe
Or
I'll use that as the excuse why I haven't played it yet from now on.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, I really
needs
appreciate
time
this
to
video.
cook,
Now
guys.
I finally have an excuse to say why I haven't played it yet.
I would recommend you take it very slow. As Larian has already said, they have
Oh,
major,
that's
major
great.
patches on the way.
Fair enough.
So just
Go for
something
it.
to consider when you play this game. Do I think the game
Okay.
is playable right now? I do. But I do think you need to go in with it expecting the last little bit to maybe not be quite as rock solid as the first bit of the game.
I mean, I feel like a lot of games have this problem, right? Where it's like the last part of the game isn't really as great as the beginning.
It's almost like the same philosophy you take with a YouTube video. If you want retention, you want people to stick around to the end of the video, the first part of the video has to be captivating until people have sunk enough time where they're willing to stick around. I'm still having trouble with that myself. Those of you who have made it this far, thanks so much. Appreciate you. All 2 of you. That's optimistic.
beginning. I mean, I think Dark Souls 1 was like this. I think Dark Souls 2 was like this. And like, yeah, most games, like, yeah, I mean, I don't know about most games. Like, I'm trying to think, like, Final Fantasy 16. No, I feel like it was good all the way through.
Yeah,
Sekiro, no, I
nice.
think it's the opposite. I think Sekiro just got better over time. Not Halo 3, not a shot. It's Halo 3. Yeah, I Final Fantasy 16 dragged. I feel like it didn't. I feel like it kind of got things. It got things out of the way quick enough. Hogwarts.
Didn't play it.
Yeah, maybe a bit. Yeah, maybe a bit. Like, I mean, the last fight in Hogwarts was really good. I was actually really sad whenever I did the last fight against that guy, like Ramcock or Ramrock or whatever the hell he was. Because I thought, like, that fight was so well designed. And it's like, why didn't we have this for the whole game?
And
New
kind of
World.
just, you know,
Yeah,
take
New
that with you.
World. Perfect
So again,
example.
TLDR, 3 thumbs up for this game. I absolutely loved it.
What's the third
Not
thumb?
a flawless product, but still, even with all its flaws,
Yeah.
Third thumb?
one of the best games I've ever played. Thanks for watching. I will see you next Thoughts video. Stop by the channel at twitch.tv/CohhCarnage and give us a hi. And I appreciate you. Bye-bye.
What a nice wholesome video. Wow. I'll link
Perfect.
you guys it and take a look at it.
Perfect.
Let's see this here. And yeah, I mean, I think every game, it's the same thing I said with Elden Ring, right? Is like Elden Ring, like I have some controversial opinions on Elden Ring. Like I said,
yeah,
Moenia isn't a good boss. I don't think that she is. And there's a lot of other things like I kind of wish that were different, right? But look, I mean, I still think it's a great game. Almost every game is not perfect. It is very hard for me to think of a perfect game. And like the truth is, like, I think Sekiro is probably, at least in my mind, the closest thing to a perfect
Mass
game.
Effect 2, Halo 2. These are not perfect games. They're good games, but they're not perfect. Hollow Cure, apparently. Skate 3.
Game that you can get to. At least that, like, I can think of, like, off the top of my head. And
Someone said Chrono
to the
Trigger. I could see Chrono Trigger being a big one. XCOM 2? I should get back into XCOM 2. I never finished it.
past,
Diablo 2. Super Mario Brothers 2. Stardew. I'm sure a lot of people really like Stardew.
man. Dude, do you remember back Link to the Past and, like, the key art and the fan art that they had of it? Where, like, it was some fucking dark fantasy, like, legend, like, Lord of the Rings, like, fucking Frazetta level, like, terror and shit. And then they took that into Ocarina of Time, and then Majora's Mask was so fucking dark they didn't even do as much of that stuff because the game did it on its own. And then they brought out that Wind Waker cartoon bullshit, and I lost my fucking mind.
I've never played Wind Waker for that reason. It feels too, like, family friendly compared to the other Zelda games. And I didn't actually play the Game Boy titles. I should, because I've heard they're really fun. But yeah, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, so cool.
I was so mad. I was fucking furious they did that. I got Diablo 4 over Diablo 4 by playing Lost Ark. Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, there you go. Ocarina of Time, Link to the Past. Yeah, like, I'm saying, like, there are games that are perfect, but I feel like many of the most perfect games are perfect because they are more limited in scope. And the larger the scope of a game, the more the game, it's harder for that game to achieve that level of perfection.
Which is what makes Baldur's Gate 3 so surprising and leaves so much room for potential, because we're in a different stage. Like, we're referring to games where back in the day they released as final products and, like, they were quite feature complete. I think Star Wars KOTOR does a good job of that because it felt pretty feature complete and it had a limited scope. Like, it wasn't a massive place to explore, but it felt big. It felt like there was a lot of choice and your choices mattered. That's what made it so cool.
Like Super Mario World, perfect game. 96 exits, but that's it. You know,
Nobody has
relatively
mentioned
small scope.
KOTOR. Some people are saying Skyrim.
Metroid Prime. I never beat Metroid Prime. I always wanted to play the remastered one. I never did it.
Red Dead
Starts
Redemption
losing
2.
its identity. Well, I think it's also just like
It's
more
pretty good.
variables, and also like every variable that comes up is an opportunity for it not to be good. The Link Between Worlds. I think I did play that one actually. Yeah.
Metal Gear Solid
CohhCarnage.
2.
This is a very good
Mass
video.
Effect 2.
Yeah.
Half-Life 2.
Very great video, and I'm glad to see this. You enjoyed the new CohhCarnage. If it's really fun, if you enjoyed Vaulton, yeah, I need to play Lost Ark again. I've just been busy, man.
Metroid.
Halo 3 is basically perfect. I think that.
Halo 3 is very good. It's not perfect.
I think if you want to go in terms of like campaign quality, I think Halo 1 and Halo 3 campaigns are about equal, and I think
Yeah, and the rest of the games kind of fall off. But what makes Halo 3 have such staying power was the Forge. Being able to create your own fun with your friends and go onto like a marketplace and download other people's designed maps, like that was so great.
Halo 2 is like Halo 1 and Halo 3 are a 10, and Halo 2 is like a 9.5 or a 9.8.
Yeah,
That's what I
agreed.
think. Halo 2 was all right, but I just think
Titanfall
Halo
2,
3
Age
and
of
Halo 1
Empires
was
2.
just fucking nuts.
Gears of War 2.
Jackal snipers, never forget.
Jackal
Never fucking forget
snipers.
that shit.
Oh my
Getting
god.
beamed without
So
even seeing
brutal.
them, man. Reach is a 10 also. I never played the Reach
When you're
campaign.
playing on Legendary and a Jackal sniper just takes your head off and you have to go back to the checkpoint. Ugh. So annoying.
I only played multiplayer because it was over at Jeff's house. Let's see here. Make sure I don't miss anything else to cover, and